I think it's the same hypocrisy of things we look at in the U.S. where we've made these choices.
No, it's not, because you don't really have the enemies. What enemies do you have? Like, okay, so
in the United States?
Yeah, who's your enemy? Really? Who's your enemy? I mean, we made everyone our enemy, but who was there? Like, was Vietnam your enemy? The country that you invaded for, like, on a lie?
No.
Is that, yeah, so who was it? Who was the
Gulf
enemy?
of Tonkin was a false flag.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm talking about.
So then the question
That's exactly
is,
what I'm
then
saying.
who's attacking you? Who's attacking you? Who's your enemy? Well, think about Putin and his world. He comes in power, okay? And talking about that dark spot in America that tries to control the world, right? So these guys made Russia lose territories they made a promise. Hey, bring down the wall. Let's rearrange this shit, right? Let's figure out what's going on here. So these guys pretty much helped Soviet Union like be no more, okay? Like, in a way. It was not their achievements when Soviets got there. It was all Soviets by themselves. They imploded from the inside, but they helped the process of Berlin Wall and all that. And Bush came in and did what he did. But here's an interesting thing. What did they do right after that Berlin Wall came down? I can tell you what they did. They sent operatives, whether it's CIA and MI6 and others, in country of Georgia, Ukraine, and all these countries that belonged to Russia, and they started arming groups that eventually would break off Georgia, Ukraine, and other places from Russia. So now, like, you're Putin, remember? I'm an American, you're Putin. So you answer me as Putin, okay? So you lived Yeltsin years, where your president was like a funny puppet to Bill Clinton, right? When he was begging on the phone to Bill Clinton not to bomb Serbia, right? So you watched all that. You were at the KGB, you watched all that. Mm-hmm. And you have this anger in you. Like, how come a president of Russia, like a huge superpower, beg someone else not to bomb Slavs? Like, what is that, by the way, right? So then you had to take this anger. When you came in power as a president, you have to take this anger and put it in a box. And you went over to Bush, you said, let's be friends. And you meant it, by the way. You even offered, why don't Russia become part of NATO? What does that mean? That means like full-on friendship zone here. Like, and Bill Clinton said, we've got a great idea. And next day he comes in, actually, I've talked to people, they said no.
Right.
Why? So he made multiple attempts to be friends with the Americans with like no...
Hey guys, if you haven't already subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. It's a huge, huge help. Thank you.
Like, there was no extra, like, what's the catch, right? Like, let's be friends, dude. What is the deal? And they said, no, we don't want you as a friend. I'll tell you even better. Michael Hayden, the psychopath who was in charge of NSA and then CIA. I mean, can you imagine how many butts you gotta kiss to be like in charge of both? Like, one agency is big enough. And he comes out and says, well, we didn't care what Russia thought. We didn't give a fuck. Like, he didn't say fuck, but we didn't care. He said, really? You didn't care that Russia was telling you that, hey, do not jeopardize my national security? Why do you care when England says that? England was the biggest enemy we ever had historically. Why do you care when England says that? Why accept, like, Israel, England, and not Russia in friendship? What's up with that? Like, think for a second.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I think that when you look at the foreign policy of the United States towards Russia just on a diplomatic level since the fall of the Soviet Union, I don't think there have been a lot of good strokes at all. I will agree with that 100%. I think that you have forced them into a box such that even if you get people who maybe are objectively bad people, maybe they do some bad shit to their people, you are giving them a case to take their foreign policy actions that they do. And it is a great point that you make to put yourself, quote unquote, under the skin of a leader, particularly someone that you don't think is good. And, objectively.
I don't think he's bad, actually. I know you don't,
Putin's
but
bad?
no,
Why
not at all. I've
had someone sit across from me who's had all kinds of friends executed by that guy.
Yeah,
so it's
I'm
very,
pretty
very
sure.
hard for me to see that.
I'm pretty sure I know who you're talking about, and I don't think so. So I grew up hating Putin, unfortunately. I admit that I was wrong. I grew up in country of Georgia, right? As a kid. So, and where CIA puppet was the president. So they taught me to hate him. So I hated him because I was not a journalist. I didn't have the tools I have today. So I hated the guy with everything I had. And then when I became a journalist and I started actually reading stuff and actually understanding, putting myself into his skin, I realized that not only this guy is not a bad dude, he's also a really effing good leader of Russia.
Why do you say that? Let's start with the first part.
Okay.
Why is he not?
1991, where is Russia?
1991?
What's happening?
Lost, broken, communism fell.
Thank you, all of that. So then Russian people are looking for food in freaking dumpsters. Mm-hmm. Chechnya is a growing problem. It's about to explode, which it did, by the way. So, and all of a sudden you have a pathetic president like Yeltsin, and then Putin comes in power, and not only he takes the country out of the gutter, but he actually gives Russian people pride to be a superpower again. Argue that fact with me. Argue that. That did not happen? Russia is not a third. Yeah. Who else did this? There was no one else.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. So would you argue that most Russians like Putin? I was there. I visited Russia. I know that majority of Russians support him. Majority of Russians. Is that a fact or not? You say. You tell me.
I would actually believe that's a fact.
Good.
I think there's been some polls that are conducted that are clearly skewed, but
which
if you're
ones?
saying if you're saying know. When they're 95% of people support him, that's not the case.
Yeah, of course not. There is never a case.
Do I believe it when the data comes out 60%?
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's agree on basics, okay? Mm-hmm. Putin reformed Russia into another superpower, which it was not, by the way, in 1990. It was a mess. It was not superpower.
It was a mess.
Yeah. So he brought the status of superpower back. He reformed the entire army. That was nothing in 1991. They didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
He reformed the country completely, and his people like him. Why is he a bad leader? What makes him a bad leader?
Where do you want me to start?
No, I asked you, what kind of leader is a good leader? When he reforms the country and your people like him?
I think part of being a good leader is also knowing that the system, that you are not bigger than the system. And this is a guy who's repeatedly changed the Constitution to be able to stay in power of the country into perpetuity. It's also a guy that, and I say this knowing full well that my country and many countries around the world have done this stuff too. So let me be very clear on that. But he's a guy who came to power blowing up his own apartment buildings in Russia.
That was not a false flag. I'm sorry. If you're talking about the Chechen war, it was not a false flag.
I do believe it was. I think.
It was actually. I agree. It was a false flag. I'm sorry. I misspoke. Yeah. It was a false flag, not Vladimir Putin's false flag. If you know the case, which I do, I can send you an article about it.
All right. So how do you think? Who else would have done that? Vladimir Putin. Because David Satter was the guy on that. Alexander Litvinenko was the other guy, and Putin killed him.
I know Alexander. I know who he was.
He killed him outside of his country, poisoned the guy.
Yes, I actually believe that he did kill Litvinenko.
And that's what I'm saying. So, why would he kill the guy who Litvinenko was a former FSB?
Yes.
Spy who was so there were two guys who were blowing the whistle on the apartments. One of them is my friend David Satter, who sat here with me 2 times before. He was in the West because he's an American. The other one was Alexander Litvinenko, who was FSB internal. Alexander Litvinenko was executed, I think it was in London. I haven't looked at that case
Yes,
in
it
a while.
was in London. He was poisoned,
with polonium.
With polonium
by FSB agents that is on Vladimir Putin's orders to do that.
Right.
The case that
zero argument with that. Zero.
David runs through the entire case, and he's written 8 books. I forget the name of this one, but there's one of his books. We can pull it up. David Satter apartment bombings book,
Yeah.
He makes the full case. He's laid it out with me on episode 92.
Yeah, you know how many times I've heard it on the American propagandist radio too?
I have no doubt. Listen, hold on, Elizabeth. I have no doubt that there is propaganda against Putin. I have zero doubt about that. I know that if they could blame Putin for someone farting in another country,
I'll make it super easy for you. Let's say he did. Like I disagree, and I'll send you a great work that goes into detail to who did it and how. But let's say I'll make it super easy for you. Let's say he did it. He conducted a false flag. What was that false flag about? Do you remember?
So the false flag was at a time where what happened was Yeltsin had a 1% approval rating. Putin was the number 2 in charge towards the end. He had a 1% approval rating as well. Yeltsin gets on the phone with Bill Clinton and says, hey, I'm going to introduce you to my number 2. He's going to be the next president. Clinton's like, the fuck are you talking about? You're about to be put on trial by your people after you lose power. Then the apartments fall down. It then is blamed on the Chechens. They start the Second Chechen War. Putin becomes the wartime leader. He moves up the election.
Yes.
You know, this is a democratic leader moving up.
Who said democratic leader? Putin was never a democratic leader.
You understand? You understand what I mean? Like when the connotation is like I shouldn't say democratic, but you understand what I mean?
Yes.
Like it's supposed to be a democratic election. Okay. I'm sorry, I misspoke. Yeah. But like moves up the election while he's a wartime leader and his polls went up to 55%. Wins the election, then basically never gives up power. Like 1 plus 1 plus 1, and then when you look at the actual evidence in the towers, like...
Okay, so here's the thing. I told you I'll make it super easy for you. Let's say it was the red flag operation, a false flag operation, right? Okay, great. So that operation happened so that they could have an excuse to go into Chechnya and start another war, okay? So the question is, was Chechen war out looking at now where we are, correct way to do things or not? Because I'll give you a number 2. 90% of historians and political analysts would say, yes, it was. Because look at Chechnya now. So what he did there, let's say, if he did, which I, again, disagree, and I'll send you work to read, but let's say he did that, false flag, and killed like 4 people.
It wasn't 4 people. It was a lot more than 4 people.
Okay, so let's say 50.
It was more than...
Even one is a tragedy, but let's say 50, okay? So
it was hundreds, but
he ended... Hundreds? No way.
Yeah, it was multiple towers.
It's not hundreds.
Can we do the Russian apartment bombings, 1999?
Yeah, there's no way it's hundreds, like casualties. But anyway, so he goes into Chechnya that is about to become a huge problem, right? And I told
307.
you 307. Okay, I was wrong about that. So let's say the Chechen war. If he has not gone and dealt with that, right, that would become the downfall of the entire region. Everyone agrees that what Chechnya is today, like with complete calm in Chechnya. And yes, some Russians say, well, kind of, he won Chechnya by money in a way because he, puts a lot of money into Chechnya. But the reality is there is no conflict. The reality is the hottest spot was neutralized, right? That could have caused thousands and thousands more deaths. So now make the analysis as a leader. Okay, 307 people. Okay, so 307 people versus millions that could follow. You make the choice. Hey, you're Vladimir Putin, remember? You make the choice.
I think it's the same hypocrisy of things we look at in the U.S. where we've made these choices.
No, it's not, because you don't really have the enemies. What enemies do you have? Like, okay, so...
In the United States?
Yeah, who's your enemy? Really, who's your enemy? I mean, we made everyone our enemy, but who was there? Like, was Vietnam your enemy? The country that you invaded for, like, on a lie?
No.
Is that, yeah, so who was it? Who was the
Gulf
enemy?
of Tonkin was a false flag.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I'm
talking about. So then the question is, who's attacking you? Who's attacking you? Who's your enemy?
In that case, that was a false flag that we did.
I agree. What about 9/11? What about 9/11? Who attacked you? What about 9/11?
So with the apartment bombings, it's the same argument. That's my point.
How is the same argument? You have West funding Chechen terrorists, which we know is true. Like, they funded not only Chechen terrorists, but you have West funding Georgian terrorists. Like, it's going to explode. They are putting funding. These people are getting stronger and stronger and stronger. You're going to allow these groups to become what Abkhazia became for Georgians? Are you kidding me? Like, how is that the same case? I don't recall anyone funding Vietnamese to attack you. I don't think anyone trying to destabilize the United States with militia groups from the inside putting money into it. Did Russia do it? No. So it's not the same case. I'm sorry. It's not the same case.
Thank you guys for watching the episode. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button and smash that like button on the video. They're both a huge, huge help. And if you would like to follow me on Instagram and X, those links are in my description below.